You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Our guest for this week's show is real estate industry expert Matt Slepin. Matt founded Terra Search Partners in January of 2006 to create a boutique executive search firm for the commercial real estate industry that was focused on high-quality execution, client-oriented consultative recruiting, and associated services. Prior to forming Terra, Matt spent 20 plus years in many high-level roles in the commercial real estate and finance worlds. Matt's background is quite extensive, and so I think that it would only do it justice if it came directly from Matt. And so I'll have Matt go into deeper detail once we bring him here on the show. Additionally, one thing that I want to mention here that I feel is of the utmost importance is that Matt is also the host of a podcast. It's a series called Leading Voices in Real Estate, where he interviews leaders from throughout the real estate industry about their leadership journeys and their work within the industry. Now, I'll tell you that this is a must-listen podcast. You got to add it to your iTunes queue or whatever app you use to listen to podcasts, and it's phenomenal. He's brought some just incredible rock star guests to the show, and so definitely add that to your queue. I know I have, and I've listened to probably about half of Matt's shows thus far, so definitely one that you want to grab onto. So guys, I'm incredibly excited to bring Matt onto the show, but before we do, here's a quick word from our show sponsor, Sunrise Capital Investors. Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here with Sunrise Capital Investors. As you are hopefully already well aware if you've been a listener for any period of time, my goal has always been to provide you with as much value as I possibly can through my two podcasts, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow and the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. As our audience continues to grow, literally, we've been downloaded millions of times by folks in over 125 countries. I've had thousands of people reach out looking to get involved in our niche. And that's the phenomenal niche of mobile home park investing. For those that don't know, I've been a full-time real estate investor for nearly 20 years now, and I've personally invested in and have owned apartment complexes, various commercial properties, hundreds of single-family rentals, and I've interviewed some of the most successful investors in just about every other asset class, and I've arrived at this one very simple conclusion. Mobile home parks are hands down the best investment I've found to date. Why? They provide investors with the best risk-adjusted returns out of any other real estate sector that I've seen. Investing in real estate can get complicated, and I really want to simplify this process for you. If you're someone who wants to diversify away from the uncertainty of Wall Street and allocate a percentage of your real estate portfolio to mobile home parks, but maybe you don't have the time nor the inclination to personally locate good deals yourself, then our team will do it for you. At Sunrise Capital Investors, our team specializes in the acquisitions and management of undervalued and highly profitable mobile home parks. And we are now providing accredited investors with an opportunity to participate directly alongside our team in our up-and-coming deals. And let me say this, I believe that we are hands down the best in our space at sourcing highly profitable off-market deals. That's really what makes us unique in this niche and as investment managers. As stewards of your capital, we truly are aligned with our investors. We've structured our investment fund so that we as a company are incentivized in the same way the investor is, which is through the performance of the investment itself. In addition, we want to make sure that we not only make money for our investors, but that they understand how it's being made. That's why we provide our accredited partners with a private monthly podcast that walks them through the detailed updates on how their investment is performing. And we're very transparent, providing you with the good, the bad, and the ugly at times. And so if you'd like to learn more about the partnership opportunities with our team here at Sunrise, please go visit sunrisecapitalinvestors.com and click on the investors link to get signed up. It's absolutely free and you'll get placed on the priority list of when new opportunities come along.
Also, feel free to call us at 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. Again, that's 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. And one of our investor relations team members will help you schedule an appointment to speak with one of our managing principals. If you have questions, go ahead and schedule a call and let's get on the phone and talk. And with that, guys, I like to leave with one last thought. From the time that I wake up in the morning till the time that I lay my head down the rest of the evening, my number one priority with everything I do, whether it be recording this podcast, working for our investors, helping each of you reach your investment goals, to providing a great experience to each of our residents who reside in our communities, is to add huge amounts of value to everyone that I come in contact with. Now, with that being said, I look forward to the opportunity of bringing value to you through Sunrise and through this podcast. Thank you for your time. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the show. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest for today's show, Matt Slepin. Matt, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. Kevin, how are you?
Oh, doing great. I appreciate you joining us here on this sunny day here. Hopefully the sun is shining where you're at, which is, I believe, San Francisco, correct?
San Francisco, we have a little bit of sun, a little bit of fog today.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Matt, I gave you a very brief, not so much justice introduction there. And so, your background and your resume is so extensive that I wanted to do the 10,000 foot view there in the introduction, but really allow you from your own words and your own perspective to tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and your background, if you would. So maybe take a few minutes to do that if you could.
Sure. So I'm based here in San Francisco, California. I lead Terra Search Partners, as you said, a boutique firm, a boutique executive search firm focused on the real estate business, which we'll talk more about. I've been a recruiter in the real estate space for about 24 years since I moved to California from Washington, D.C. I moved out here as a trailing spouse to my wife, who was running the West Coast for Arthur Andersen's real estate capital markets business. And I left D.C., where I did very different work, to come here and then figured out what to do, and it became search. And back in D.C., I had a 20-year career with a lot of different roles in real estate. So I started as a lobbyist and then moved into working for then the largest multifamily owner-developer in the country, the National Housing Partnership. Then moved from there into a mortgage banking role, which company is now Wells Fargo Mortgage Capital, and then moved to a commercial real estate company in Northern Virginia. And then the S&L crisis hit, and they lost almost their whole staff. I went deep down under and worked at the RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation, which was the S&L bailout agency. And I was one of the leaders in what we called the silver lining of the RTC, which was the affordable housing program, because we sold both single-family homes and multifamily properties with use restrictions for low-income people. Again, the silver lining of the S&L bailout. And then after that, I ran a trade group in the multifamily space called the Multifamily Housing Institute. And in the middle of running the institute, we up and moved to California, and I took this very DC-centric career path and switched over, and it wound up being recruiting. And I've been doing that for about 20 years. I founded my firm 12 years ago, and I'm blessed. I love what I do. And I think finding one's calling is one of the secrets to happiness in work.
Absolutely. And what I'd love to know is, what was it that you saw as the opportunity to start your own firm? You could do it better, you could do it smarter, more efficiently. What were some of those ingredients that you saw as an opportunity to push you out to actually start your own recruiting firm, which is Terra Search Partners?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think people start their own business for different reasons. Some were always born to be an entrepreneur, and I was not one of them. When I got into search at about age 40, I was with 3 different firms. So I was with a boutique firm, did it for a year and realized, holy cow, this is it. So essentially, then the luckiest part for my career is that I met this man and he said, try out search. And all of the disparate elements that had been in my background for 20 years, all the things I learned, all of a sudden glommed together to become this thing that worked for me very uniquely and wonderfully. And my career took off and made sense when I started in search. And so we had this boutique firm. We wound up selling it to one of the largest search firms in the world, Heidrick & Struggles. I was there for about 3 years, decided I didn't much like the big conglomerate. That wasn't who I was. And also real estate was buried inside that company, and I'm 100% a real estate guy. So wound up leaving there, joined another boutique real estate recruiting firm, and after a couple of years realized I needed to be my own. I needed to do it my own way and with my own set of values. And so we started Terra Search back in, as you said, in 2006.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 12 years strong, almost 13. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well, they say the statistic is most small businesses don't make it past, what is it, year 4 or 5, something like that, or 80% of them after year 5?
It was actually year 2 that was the challenge, because we had we know real estate to be a cyclical business. We started at the kind of end of 06, whatever, and we knew that we were building track record and building a small bank account because we had a feeling a recession was coming. And then when recession hit, it just clobbered us. I mean, there was... we have a board on the wall where we have both our existing searches and the pipeline on a whiteboard, and we just erased the whole whiteboard and gave up because there was only 1 or 2 for a couple of years there, but we made it through.
I was going to say, you probably had a ton of talent to pull from, but just nowhere to put them at, right? And just no home for them.
Supply demand was in a wacky place. The Great Recession.
Very interesting. So maybe if you could, just from a high level point of view, give us an idea. Everyone knows what generally speaking, everyone I think should know what a recruiting firm is, but maybe take a minute and tell us what that means to Terra Search Partners. Like, what exactly is it that you guys do?
Sure. So let me start just big picture because it helps provide perspective on this. So there's 2, maybe 3 kinds of search. Search 1 is do it yourself or do something online, but don't, bring in a professional to help you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of firms do that, and maybe that's the best way if you can, because then you have options, you don't pay anyone to do it, and you're going to hire friends. And so that helps build companies in some ways. The second kind of search is I guess I like to say at the lower end, it's called contingency search. And people do it for, employees that might make up to $120,000. They clearly do it if you're hiring administrative staff and like that. And that's contingent search, which is you hire 1, 2, or 3 recruiters on a non-exclusive basis, and you only pay them upon success. And we all know what that means, but that you get a flow of candidates and like that. And that's called contingent search. And the third kind of search is called retained search, which is what's done at the higher end, where you essentially hire a recruiter on an exclusive basis to be your advisor and your consultant. And once you say the word advisor or consultant, you're in a different ballpark of what that means. So what that means is not we're getting you bodies. It means we're getting you bodies and we're advising you to think about this within the context of your company. So that's what we do. We're retained search, and we have lots of competitors who do that. But that's what the model is. And if you think about bringing on someone to stand alongside you to help you think about what it is you need, what you're looking for, how to go find those people, finding those people, and then how to think about those people and how to think about those people in your organization, that's what a firm like Terra does, and that's what we love to do. That's where our passion is. Got
it. Very interesting. And so who are the typical firms that will bring you on board, that will bring on your advisory services to find that right talent for their team?
Yeah, so let me give some examples, but in overall context. So we do search for people who make $250,000 and above, just to give us context for that. So it's kind of, could be mid-level, could be top level, could be C-level, whatever in an organization, but that's kind of the ballpark, and the hurdle rate winds up being a certain amount of income because we're paid a third of what compensation winds up being. And that makes the economic model work. In our particular practice, about a third of our clients are in the apartment business generally. Other third of our clients are in the low-income housing apartment business generally, and a third of our clients are in all the other food groups of commercial real estate. And I assume the listeners know what the food groups are, but it's office, industrial, retail, apartments, and the specialty assets. And so those are the kind of clients we have. And then our clients range from REITs, institutional REITs or large institutional investment advisors, to family businesses. And we could work with a company, to nonprofits in the affordable space. And we could work with companies ranging from 5 people, and we help one guy set up his business, and maybe they're now 20. And when it was just him, he called and said, go find my acquisition guy and my asset management guy. and they're now co-leading a $2 billion company.
Mm-hmm.
So the range of size, scale, ownership, family ownership, nonprofit, institutional, it's all out there. We could help any of that.
What type of advice would you give to the entrepreneur that's growing, let's call it in the startup stage, right? I mean, they're bootstrapping it, have limited resources, limited funds available, but need to bring on some key talent to their team. They don't have, a huge hiring budget of, $500,000 or $1 million or even less than it, but they don't have much of a budget at all, ideally. What advice would you give that individual that's they're not yet suited for a Terra Search Partners, right? Someday they will, right, but today probably not.
It's funny. The first thing that came to mind as you said that, and this is both for a small group starting out as well as a large group in the middle of where they're going, is know thyself. And so the advice to that, I'm starting a company, know thyself. Who are you? What's your business? What's your model? What's your space? And then what are you strong at? What do you love to do? Do you need a partner? And if you need a partner, how does that person yin yang to who you are? Right? Know thyself, then know what your complement will be. Mm-hmm. And then also, if it's not a partner, if it's number one, number two, what do those people below you wind up looking like? So there's a lot of thinking about, we're helping someone right now start up a business. He knows himself well, and he's hiring two people. One's going to be the head deal guy, and the other's going to be the head operations finance person. Because that those are the functional areas that need to tuck in. And then the question becomes those initial hires, at what level do you do? What level can you afford? And are you planning out 5 years? Are you putting in placeholders of people? So lots of ways to think about that.
Got it. But more so probably going the contingency route, right? Still using a professional to help them find that talent. Where I'm going with that is I think the rabbit hole that a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in, they need to add team members in order to grow. They're already wearing a ton of hats themselves, right? Their bandwidth is stretched beyond capacity. They have no more, but that's why they need additional team they need to bring on. They need to bring it on like yesterday. And then what they do is they go out and they try to do the recruiting process themselves, which some are successful. Ultimately, they're going on LinkedIn. They're spending hours upon hours, doing outreach, outbound marketing tactics to find this potential talent, do the interview process, do the filtering process. I mean, it's incredibly time consuming. And then they get burned out and they don't hire anybody. Now they're back at start, stage one again. And, I need people. Right. I don't have enough time left. So would you suggest that in that scenario that they just put it in their budget, figure out a way? I mean, you got to have a budget to hire. Maybe they don't have the budget to ultimately, go to a group like yours, but on a contingency basis, would that be your suggestion to go that route until you have the capacity or ability or budget to go into more of the advisory role that Terra Search Partners offers?
Right. It's a good question. I think the contingent firm would work well, again, to get their secretary, their admin folks. Yeah. But what I do this all the time with people and starting a business, and you want to have a friend, like a friend like me or a competitor of mine, but someone who helps you think about your path to growth and what the people element of that path to growth means. And we talk to people all the time. We're not always on the clock. Unfortunately, often not always on the clock. But how do you think about the growth of an organization? What are the plateauing stages when you bring in someone or not? The hope for me is when I'm talking to someone like that they do come from the business, so they're not starting from scratch, and they probably have a partner or a colleague or one or two people to start versus, hey, it's me alone and I'm going to go build a business in a space I don't know and I don't know any people. Right. That actually, by definition, sounds dangerous versus, hey, I come from the business and now I'm going to go do it on my own and I'm bringing 3 or 4 people around. To me, already that person's ready to be a leader.
Yeah.
Right. They're oriented. They have contacts, and contacts just matter in life. And I believe in that person more than I believe in the person with a great idea, but no people around them yet.
Yep. No, fair enough. You mentioned the word leadership. I want to talk about that a little bit. You have the unique opportunity, both through your search firm and also through your podcast, to deal with some of the top leaders in our industry. I'd love to hear from your side of it. What are some of the top leadership lessons that you've been able to extract over these years of, the 12 or 13 years of running Terra Search Partners, or I don't know how long you've been doing your podcast, but you've interviewed some absolute rock stars. I don't know how else to put it. Just some brilliant folks on that show, right. Leaders in their space. And so if you had the top, the top, whatever, 2, 3, 4 lessons that you've been able to extract from these top leaders in their industry, what would they be?
Yeah, interesting. I should have pre-thought this one, but I'll say a couple off the top of my head. The first thing is that leadership requires some breadth and some vision. And I believe that usually leaders evolve over time in one's career. Sam Zell, who we have on the podcast, he was a leader in college. So in college, he started running companies more or less and had the confidence and intellect to do that, but most don't. So most people kind of get there after a while. And the question is, where do you get there from? And the way I look at it in the real estate world is, what discipline do you grow up in the business over the first 5, 10, 15, 20 years before you then graduate to leadership? You have leadership qualities all along, but maybe you're coming in as a property manager discipline, or maybe operations discipline, or maybe finance discipline, or maybe acquisitions discipline, or investments discipline. And the secret here is the leader is the person who can take their discipline and transcend their discipline to understand the whole business. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And it's not everyone who could do that. It's not everyone who's willing to leave the comfort zone of their discipline and, call their discipline acquisitions, which is often the one, then grows into leadership. But how do you get the breadth, the 10,000 foot look at the whole business? How do you think about it holistically? How do you learn that? And leaders really have that. Second thing is, leaders do have confidence and drive. And sometimes that confidence and drive gets to the word I use, which is they actually are able to walk through a wall, and they can convince people that they will. And the finance people will be convinced, and their team will join them and walk through the wall after them.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing is they may have some organizing principles in their life and philosophy. I interviewed someone yesterday for the podcast, and he used the word mission maybe 5 or 6 times in the conversation. And that one really resonates with me deeply. He's in the for-profit affordable housing business, so affordable housing has mission to begin with. But there's something that he believes in, both ethically in terms of how he deals in the marketplace, and then ethically in terms of what it is he wants to do. He wants to make a difference. He has a mission. Guy's made a lot of dough. And I know when I started my business, I had an intentionality around what we stood for, not just how we do what we do, but we wanted to serve clients and candidates really well and deeply. And sometimes that means leaving money on the table. Sometimes it means maximizing dollars, but you run after it with that level of service. And it's the service that gives you a mission and a drive. So maybe those 3 things.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about that mission and also core values of a company. Again, you interact and engage with a multitude of companies within our industry. And how important do you feel, not just from your own perspective with Terra Search Partners, but from all the other companies that you've worked with, whether it be in your prior career or with Terra Search Partners, how important do you feel that having absolute clarity on that mission and also having a underlying set of core principles that your company operates within, how important do you feel that is to the overall success of a company and organization?
It's funny, I'll be of 2 minds about it. I think clarity about what you do and how you do it and principles upon which you do your business are really do have to be clear. What space you're in, where you're going to make money, where you're going to apply that, where you're going to focus your time and talent as a business. And then the second may be the personality that drives the company. And some companies are, highly deal-oriented and velocity-oriented. Some companies are in the real estate business are built to hold forever, or hold forever, buy and hold forever. And so those create different types of behavior patterns. And I think a company needs to be clear about those. When I read it in a mission statement, often I don't believe it, because even, some people are nicer or harder or purely profit motivated versus purely relationship oriented. And these are the things that differentiate companies. But even the hardest edge company might have the most highfalutin mission statement, but it's really how do they behave, and they may not line up.
Yeah. Yeah. You make some very valid points there. I want to expand on that a little bit. I want to talk about from your side of things, being in the recruiter space, finding that right fit. When you're looking for talent, you're seeking talent for one of your clients, for one of the companies that are recruiting. Ultimately, what do you look for in somebody? I mean, how do you really drill down and filter out those folks, those talented folks that might be the right fit for that particular company's culture or their, the mission, what they're driving towards? Do you guys have a process that you go through to uncover this? I think it's important to understand. I mean, I'm assuming you do have a process, but this is a very important exercise for all the listeners to understand, because I think that whatever your answer is can probably be applied to just about every other aspect of their business as they engage with potential prospects or partners, or as they go down this road of hiring employees to grow their firm. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if you would.
Sure. So I think there's two parts of it. So step one gets back to words I used before, and I've never used these words before today's podcast, but the know thyself thing, or a different word is context. So a client may come to us and say, here's the job description, go find us one, or one that fits. And my first question always is, wait a minute, slow down. Where is this job and role going to land? And where does it fit within your company? And who is your company? And who surrounds this person? And who surrounds this role? So the first thing is to have a broader context, 3 times wider than what that role is all about. And then I understand both the functional aspects of what that person does, but then culturally where it fits in. So again, first thing is to have a really good sense of the company, the culture, the context for the role, the peers, the boss, and the hierarchy within which it sits. All that context, then, it becomes very clear versus I'm going to go find an asset manager, because that doesn't mean anything by the words just asset manager or acquisitions person.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is our job is to go collect people who fit the role as we've then defined it. And there's 2 parts to the role from my perspective. Part 1 are the relevant skill sets, and what are the 5 things that make the person hit the bullseye. And then the second is what do they like? What's their personality? What's their fit? I can be really precise in thinking through those 5 attributes, right? The 5 boxes I have to check. I can rank people pretty precisely, particularly after doing this for 20 years. But I can't rank what's their personality like. You'd think that, because you said, what's your process and methodology? And I'm thinking you're talking all about that part of it. And that part of it, I believe, comes from 20 years of intuition that I have, but I'm going to use flaky words around personality, and I'm going to use really precise words around the skill set and experience. But it also comes from round 1, 2, 3, 4 of the interview process, where you get to know that person and you interact with them in different environments to then see if it's going to be a fit, because we're now making a match on an imperfect or subjective scale. Hopefully that answer helps you think about it.
No, it does. And with your group, once you get to the second, third, or 4th stage of that interaction with that potential prospect, do any of those touches become a personal touch? Meaning, like, you go meet that individual in person or have them come to you? Because obviously you and I are doing a video right now, completely different than if we were sitting in the same room, right? It's really a little bit harder to read body language via video than it is if you're sitting across from one another. And so is there a point in time where you guys feel it necessary to actually meet someone face to face?
Well, first of all, there's us in the process, and then there's the client in the process.
Sure.
So we do typically, we have a ton of interactions, but we do one interview. I do most of them in a video, just because the way of the world. Although if I could do it in person, that's better, because I have established a 40%, 30% better, meaningful kind of connection.
Yeah.
But then the rounds of interviews become with the clients. And so the way I describe a first interview for a client is meet the candidate and see if you want to date them again. And I say this to the candidate, right? Okay, meet the client. And if you want to go deeper, then you're going to do a second round where you dig deeper. And then what happens is each of, say, 2, 3, 4 rounds become, let's dig deeper. And hate to use the word, get more intimate, get to know each other better in different environments. And then what happens over a series of 3, 4, 5 interactions, the interview thing is one, but it's not the interview. It's how do you roll up your sleeves to think through a transaction with someone through these different successive phases. How do you go have dinner with someone? Mm-hmm. Maybe have dinner with them and their spouse. How do you tour a property with a person? And each of those let you feel and understand them in a different way. And now it's the client doing all this. We're coaching everyone.
Got it.
Both have those interactions.
Got it. Nope, that makes sense. So you've been a business owner now for 13 years. Prior to that, again, extensive background in the commercial real estate industry in many different forms. Are you an active investor yourself? I mean, do you find yourself on the active side of investing in assets, or are you strictly Terra Search Partners?
It's a great question, and it's funny. My wife and I came back from meeting with a financial advisor this morning thinking about these things. And our careers are heavily invested in real estate because that's what we do. So we're not heavily diversified through our careers. And of course, financial planners will give you the advice that if you're 100% real estate in that which you do all day long, you should have your other investments outside the business. However, we do have lots of friends in the business who bring us opportunities, and we do make small investments occasionally in their deals. I wish we did more of it because there's a level of intimacy, knowledge, and you feel like you're on the inside.
Yep. No, fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I was hoping that would be your answer.
Thank you. Has to be.
So what scares you the most about where we're at in the real estate cycle? And I don't want to get into a discussion of economics or trying to read this crystal ball, right? But generally speaking, again, you deal with a lot of different real estate companies from all different markets, all different food groups. What kind of insight or intellect have you gained from them over these last couple of years as far as like where we're at in the cycle and what's your gut telling you and what's happening out there? Does anything scare you?
So I'll answer, but I'll talk more about the longer term view that doesn't scare me. Mm-hmm. But I do sense there's a recession coming and or a turn in the business. We've been on an upswing for the longest cycle we've ever had. I don't want to talk about innings because I can't. There's better people to talk about that. But within 1-2 years, is there a slowdown of some sort, a cooling off period at a minimum? And then what's the catch up between the tax cuts and the government and the black swans relating to that? Could be huge. The biggest thing that scares me is the black swan and the White House that could happen, right? So that's the scariest thing of that unknown crazy thing that is happening every day. But my sense for the long term, I don't think we have a global financial crisis. So we've been through the 30-year event a couple, 10 years ago. Fingers crossed the next one's not a 30-year event. I am scared. I'm a scared person, I guess, but I've always been scared of something wacky, climate change, the fires in California. I live in the woods, so that makes me nervous. So those things scare me. However, the long-term trends, I think, are really good for the real estate business over time, particularly for those. So I think cities continue to thrive, and I think secularly people want to live in cities. So I think densification is a long-term trend that's not going to stop. Mm-hmm. And how do we do that? How do we do that smartly, wisely, and well with most societal benefits? And the real estate industry stands to serve those purposes. I'm excited to be part of that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. No, that's a great answer. And yeah, I agree with you. Well, the reason why I asked that question, you've been through, really 2 major downturns, the savings and loans crisis, and then obviously 2008. And you were a front row seat for 2008 because you just started Terra Search Partners 2 years prior, right? So you're talking about having your whiteboard or your pipeline and basically erasing the entire thing. So, I mean, firsthand experience with ultimately how bad things can get. And you've been through an up and a down cycle. So I appreciate your feedback on that. Matt, you shared a lot of great information with us today. I'd love to enter in what we call the golden nugget segment of the show. And this is where we're going to work towards wrapping things up. But if I could, or if you could, if you had one last final golden nugget advice or wisdom that you could leave with our listeners today that may inspire and motivate them as they progress in their real estate investing career, what would that one last golden nugget be?
So I make it 2, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
One is it's a long game. And so I think if you look at your career in real estate, relationship-wise, contacts-wise, knowledge-wise, cycle-wise, get in it, stay in it, and then treat all of your relationships, all of your transactions, all of your interactions as if you're going to stay with these people in this business for the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that will change how you treat people and how you're treated and what you expect of the business. So I think playing the long game and looking at it that way is absolutely critical. And mm-hmm. then the second thing is search to find meaning alongside wanting to make a living. Mm-hmm. And so how do you make a living well to the level that you want to make a living? But then how do you find meaning and purpose for yourself in that which you do? Mm-hmm. So I think both the long game and having a career with meaning for you is really the answer to success.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic advice, Matt. And Matt, I really appreciate you coming here on the show. And I know you're an incredibly busy person growing that company there and have a lot going on. So really appreciate you coming here. And for those that have an interest in learning more about Matt and his company, you can go visit his website, which is TerraSearchPartners.com. That's Terra, TERRA, searchpartners.com. And how can folks get access to your podcast? They can go to your Terra Search Partners website and link to that podcast as well, correct?
Yeah, they could go to TerraSearchPartners.com. They could also go to LeadingVoicesPodcast.com.
Okay.
Or go to your cell phone and go to the podcast app.
That's the easiest way.
Type in Leading Voices. That's right. It's really easy, and it's great to subscribe.
Or I'm assuming you could probably put Matt's last name in as well and probably come up with that podcast also. But no, phenomenal podcast. How many guests have you had on thus far?
I think we've done 40 episodes so far.
Yeah. And
sponsored by JLL, the global services company, real estate services company. And we're rolling and have a lot planned. The goal of the podcast, interesting, is we're trying to present the breadth, people who are leaders across the breadth of the industry. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to curate maybe 100 episodes or 200 episodes that really show all kinds of perspectives on things that people do in the real estate world.
Yeah, no, and your guests have been fantastic. So kudos to you. Keep up the good work. And until we talk again, Matt, you have a great one, okay?
Great. Thanks, Kevin.
Congratulations. Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com. And we'll see you next Monday morning.